Nice to meet you, dear David, nephew in the USA, Oregon.
In Oregon.
I am Angelika in Germany, southern part of Germany. I was born in Bavaria, and I know that you love it very much.
Yes.
Today we have an interview together with 10 magical questions. We have our own channel with culture and artists and spiritual consciousness. Yeah, special belonging to this. My English is not daily life English.
Right.
And I have to read something. No? And at first, I want to read some questions to your person. So it's extraordinary, your steps in your life. And yes, this I took out of your biography in the internet, and I tell our viewers. David Nevue is an internationally recognized pianist, composer, recording artist, and an icon of the genre. To quote Charlie Osborne of Audio Syncrasy at the 2050 Music Awards. Yes. You have released 17 albums of this original, or of your own original piano works and arrangements, including 2 piano albums of the year winners, Overcome 2005 and Winding Down 2015. Your latest album, 2019, is The Soft Light of Grace. Mm-hmm. Your music has surpassed 1.7 billion spins on Pandora Radio, a remarkable feat for an independent artist. Your music can be heard virtually anywhere. You listen to music, including Spotify, Apple, iTunes, Apple, Amazon, Alexa, YouTube, Sinus, satellite radio, and so on. Pandora radio. Pandora. The most important.
Yes.
You are a self-taught pianist, but you can tell it by your own. During your teenage years, you pursued creative writing, very interesting for us because we are making concerts, literature, poetry, and music, and we include your music especially in our program. Also.
Wonderful.
And Michelle McLaughlin, I think she was your, she learned composition at you. You have been her teacher. Yes, it's right? Or?
I gave her advice when she asked for it.
Okay. And one of my 3 favorites of composers of USA is Greg Maroney, you know.
Yes.
I am absolutely focused on these 3 composers. And on our concerts, I tell about you and the other 2. And the people love this music. In every age, every the youth and over the 18.
Yeah.
Also. Yes. Okay. I think the next things, George Winston and so on, you can tell by your own. Then
Okay.
I start with the first magical question.
Magic question.
Oder magic question. At first, as a child, did you have experiences that possibly pointed lights to your later life path?
Well, I didn't, as a child, I didn't have anybody in my family or near me who was musical. So I didn't have any influence directly around me that would have indicated that I would become a composer or a pianist at that time. However, my grandmother had a old electric piano slash organ at her house, and it was a full-size keyboard. And so as a child, I would go to grandma's house, which we would go all the time to my grandma's house, and I would just sit at that keyboard and I would play. And I was frequently trying to pick out the melodies from songs that I was hearing on television or especially the radio. And so early on, I had a very good ear for music in terms of hearing melody. And when I was little, trying to find those melodies on the keyboard. And that really helped me to develop an ear for intervals and uh, pitch and relative pitch. And the first song that I can remember learning to play was a song called Windy by a band called The Association. And I have um, very solid memories of sitting at that piano working that out. So I think from early on, it was that ability to hear music and hear pitch and to find it on a keyboard, which probably pointed to maybe what I would become someday, because that is the very same thing that I still do, which is to take melody and find it on the piano, which is, sometimes the melody comes from inside or the melody comes from my head, or if I'm working on arrangements for hymns or something else, I do the same thing now that I did when I was 7 years old, finding melodies and working them out.
And a little bit singing also?
Um, Later on, I mean, when in terms of like school, um, I was always interested in music and I was involved in band when I was a child. I played the trumpet. That was my first instrument. I played the trumpet for 3 years, and then I was always in choir and music programs. And so those things helped me to get used to seeing seeing music on a page and being able to translate that from the page to the trumpet. Or, I was a bass, actually I was a baritone. So I would, reading music in choir and uh, again, being able relative pitch and to see the difference between the notes and where they are and knowing what to sing. So yes. And then getting into more high school, I really wanted to play, you know, more rock music.
Yeah, we can go to the next question. Did you encounter a person in your younger age, or did an event happen that began to pave your way? Or what coincidences have brought you closer to your inner orientation?
Okay. Um, well, again, I didn't have people around me who were musicians or musical. Um, I was this weird person in the family who was musical when nobody else was. But uh, there was a television show that I loved to watch, and I watched all the time. And it was about these four young men who were musicians and got into wacky adventures and wrote music. And at the end of every episode, they'd play a song. And this television show was The Monkees. And I loved that show. I loved their music. And I still credit The Monkees television show for instilling in me the desire to be a musician.
Mm.
I wanted to be in a band just like that. And my at the same time, my mother had records, and so her records were Beach Boys records,
Boys, yeah.
Elvis,
Yeah.
Elvis records. And so I was listening to them, I was watching the Monkees, and I wanted to be in a band. And so I think that having that vision in my mind of this is what I want to do, I want to be a musician from the television show, I think kind of put that in my future because it helped me to have this direction of what I wanted to accomplish and what I wanted to become. It's part of what led me to start, playing the piano and writing songs, as a teenager, writing more songs as writing songs, rock songs, with
Yeah.
music and lyrics and everything.
Yeah. But I remember a teacher in the church, and you have
Yeah.
been 12 years old. He motivated you to take lessons, no?
Yeah. When I was 12, my parents put me into piano lessons. And I had three teachers in 3 years. My first teacher was my favorite and the best, but I was only with her for 3 or 4 months, and then we moved away to a different state. And then I had another teacher um, who had a very interesting approach to teaching, and her idea was that I would master one key before I went to another key. So for an entire year, everything she gave me was in the key of C. And her approach was that I had to master the key of C before I could graduate to the key of G. And I didn't think that was right. Um, so I went to a third teacher, and she taught me mostly classical and playing hymns out of the hymnal. And she was a really good teacher, but by that time I was 15 and I
Mm.
was more interested in my friends and going to the mall and sports and girls. And so
Yeah.
um, I wasn't a very good student.
Yeah. I read it. Yeah, not only you, not only you. And the music trend in this time was the new wave. I remember new wave music, no?
Yes. Yep.
A little bit dark music. Oh
Yes.
yeah, more dark.
Yeah,
And
especially when I got into college, more the little bit darker music in terms of like, Pink Floyd and Rush, um, was appealed to me at that time.
yeah, Pink Floyd and Supertramp.
Supertramp, yes.
Great fan of the
Yeah.
Supertramp.
Yeah.
And Alan Parsons Project, Transcendental. Ne? Dann the Electric Light Orchestra.
Yep.
Peter Gabriel, it was very
Yep.
well in Germany too.
Yep.
Kansas, Chess Hotel, of course. Ne? Yeah,
And Kate Bush.
yeah.
There's a band called Renaissance that was kind of a piano-based, progressive rock band. I love their music. So yeah,
Mm, mm.
grew up through a lot of different kind of musical phases, and it all began more in the kind of the new wave music, the synthesizer, synth pop music, and then kind of getting into more progressive rock style when I got into school, college.
Yeah. The next question is, as a young guy, you were you able to authentically combine external training, the normal training, with your inner development? I think there is at everybody a conflict in this time. No? How could you manage it? Your inner drive and your your education and studies and so on?
Uh, Gee, I don't know. I mean, it's just like, how did I manage it? Um, I don't, I don't know. I think I have to say that, I was always driven by doing what I loved to do. And that always, when it came to music, that always superseded everything else. So, you know, in my technical training, which wasn't
Mm,
that much in terms of like piano training, it was always focused on more classical and um, and music theory. Which actually music theory was a great thing for me, especially going into college. It really helped me to become a
mm,
better composer. Um, but music theory was one of those things where my freshman year of college, I took a music theory class that really kind of changed my direction because um, I didn't like the class. It was one of my least favorites, but it did help me for the first time to really begin to visualize the music that I was writing in terms of the progression and what I was actually doing, because so much of what I was playing and what I was writing was all by ear and by feel, which it
mm,
still is. But when I saw it written out and started working on music theory, I started to understand how everything related to each other. And it
mm,
helped me to kind of put put things in order. Instead of being this kind of musical chaos, just kind of going with whatever, it helped me to have structure and to approach music in a little bit more of a deliberate way in terms of building a piece and
mm,
taking the listener on a journey rather than just, you know, repeating the same phrase over and over and over again. So,
mm. Yeah, and poetry, it was very strong in your heart.
yes,
And had you at this time even an idea to combine music and poetry?
yes. Well, I always, up until high school and even into college, I thought of myself more as a poet and a writer than I did a musician or
Mm,
composer. The composing thing and the musicianship thing kind of came out through college, but when I went into college, I was very involved in writing and writing poetry. In high school, I was the editor of the literary arts magazine for our high school. When I went into college, I ended up becoming the editor of the college literary arts poetry magazine. Um, and so that was what I wanted to do. And I really, I thought of myself as a poet, and that's what I wanted to do. Is I wanted to like write words for a living. That's what I wanted to do. Um, but at some point, the music and my fascination with music, um, particularly after being introduced to the music of George Winston, which was just like at the time in the early 80s, was like a whole different thing I'd never heard before.
yeah.
Before his music, I would never think of writing music like that because when I thought of solo piano, I thought of classical music, which I
Mm,
could never do. That was always out of reach for me, and I didn't have any desire to play that, right? It's intimidating. I was like, I could never do that. I could never. But then I heard George Winston's music, and I'm like, that I can actually do that. I can, and that's what kind of started me experimenting in writing songs for the piano. And what ended up happening was that my desire and interest in writing words and phrasing words into poetic pictures and imagery kind of gradually became music.
yeah.
And so the
Yeah.
the music that I wrote was more conveying like these almost sonic musical poems to express feelings and images and
Mm,
pictures and stories. And I often joke that when I met my wife, which I met her my senior year of college. And I often joke that when I met my wife, she made me feel happy. And
Mm.
so once I was happy, I couldn't write poetry anymore, you know. So
There's no drama.
yeah, exactly. Less drama. I wasn't so sad all the time. And so, but that all kind of, it all happened at the same time. And so my writing of poetry became writing music, and my music became my expression of poetry, of that kind of art.
Yeah, and music is all. It's joy, and it's sometimes a little bit more sad. It's all. In music, you can find all soul signs, né? The signature in all regions. Yeah,
Yeah.
and poetry, maybe not always, but we have, for example, contrast with title humor, or joy. What is joy in your life? And we are responsible for our own joy in
Yeah.
our and so on. But music is universal, and I can understand it very much. When I heard it first, I think 7 years ago, a song of Michelle McLaughlin, Midwinter Memories. You know it? Midwinter
Yes.
Memories. And I heard this music, and I had lessons always in classical. And my daughter told me, "Ma'am, is there no other music? It's always this sonate of Mozart and Beethoven and so on." And then I heard on the internet this song of Michelle. And I was so impressed. What kind of music? I have never heard this kind of music. And then I followed the steps there. And then I got the sheets of Michelle. And 1 or 2 years I entrained only her sheets. And then I came to you, to your sheets, the next time. And
Yeah.
2 years, Greg Maroney, yeah. Mahoney. And I think in summary, I have 400 or 500 pieces, songs of you all. Yeah. And I love it. I love it. I love it. We
That's
came to
great.
the fourth question. You are in the middle of your projects in your life now. And your art today is unique. Yeah. Can you describe the most essential features of your art way to us? Tell us, please, now the very interesting further steps. I also mean to include other artists, radio, and so on. You are unique in your support, supporting music into the internet in the 90s, to
Yeah.
support other pianists, solo pianists, and to make it possible to get incomes through sheets. And so you are the first man, I think,
Yeah.
who has opened this door.
Yes. Well, you know, very, I've been very blessed to live in this time in history that I
Mm,
live in, and to be the age that I was at the time when the internet was becoming an accepted thing and a medium. I was in, you know, I was in it was my late 20s and early 30s when I was working for a software company, and I was working in software development and
mm,
at this company before the internet was. I mean, at that time, it was all like the bulletin board services, the BBS. It was all DOS based. Um, and then, eventually CompuServe and AOL came along. But then we had the first web browser
mm.
and Mosaic. Um, and
Hey,
I was working in the software industry when all of this happened. Um, and I had been composing and releasing music on my own and performing whenever I could perform. Um, but I was positioned perfectly to be right at the beginning
Mm,
of the internet and the World Wide Web when that happened. I was probably among the first musicians to put up a website
mm,
to promote and showcase my music. Um, I was selling music from my website before you could even take credit cards on the internet. So it was,
mm.
all if you like my music, write a check and send it, by mail. Um, but uh, what ended up happening was, as I kept on promoting my music and building my presence on the internet as the internet grew. Most of my musician friends were still scoffing at the internet, like this would not become a thing, and
Yeah.
they weren't interested at all in doing anything on. And so, I was early. I was promoting music. I started promoting my songs on a website called mp3.com, which predated iTunes or any of that. I did very well there. Um, and it became a natural expression of that to create what at that time was the closest thing you could create to an internet radio station. And at that time on mp3.com, you could create musical playlists. And so I would create, solo piano playlists. And
Mm,
what eventually happened was there was a company that came into existence, live365.com, which was a network hub for internet radio. It was the
mm,
first thing like it. And so I created a solo piano only radio station to promote my music, and to also promote the other music of other musicians who had music similar to mine. And when I first started the radio broadcast, it's called Whispering's Solo Piano Radio. And you can go to solopianoradio.com right now. It still exists, it's still streaming at this very moment. It's broadcasting. Um, and when I first started the radio broadcast, I remember that I was concerned whether I would find enough artists like me to actually fill a radio station
yeah.
with
Yeah.
music 24/7. But it turned out to be no problem because I was getting CDs from all over the world.
Mm,
Um, and so I built up this community of solo piano artists worldwide. And since we were the first radio broadcast of our kind, we were the number one radio station on Live 365's network for 8 years straight.
wow.
And the only reason it ended was because I left Live 365 because the station had gotten so big that I had
Yeah.
to find some other tools because they
Yeah.
couldn't, it was too expensive. Um, but through this process, I met other artists. We would play concerts together. I would give
Many,
them advice.
I saw many, many, many artists, ne?
Yes. Yeah.
The
I've played
USA 75 artists, also pianists, ne?
that I've played with personally. Yeah.
Oh,
I played concerts with over 70, 75 pianists personally. And right now there's 392 artists that are represented on the broadcast from
wow.
all over the world. So it's been a great journey and amazing. And I've gotten to meet and play concerts with some amazing people, including some of my piano heroes. I mean, some of the people that I grew up with, David Lawns, who was, a hero of mine. I played several concerts with him, um, and Wayne Gratz, and so many others, Robin Spielberg, um, all people who were influential to me. And so it's
Mm,
amazing to be able to set up concerts to perform and then to be able to pick artists to play with. And it's been a great blessing. And I've learned from them and I've been able to teach them a few things, I think. So it's been
yeah,
good.
yeah. And you wrote a book, ne? To
Yes.
the helping guide.
Yes. Yeah, it was called How to Promote Your Music Successfully on the Internet. And I began writing that. Again, it was in the early years. I think the first edition I wrote was in 1997. You know, again, I was really probably among the first artists doing this. So nobody at that time was talking about promoting music on the internet or marketing on the internet because everybody thought it was just a fad. You know, no one thought something would come of it. But I wrote this book, and I really wrote it as a way to kind of create a history, a record of everything that I was doing and what kinds of things I was finding success with and what was working for me and how I was getting my music out there so people could find it. And I thought, I'm going to take all this information, I'm going to put it together into a book, into a format that's easy to follow, and I'll just offer it for sale and see if people were interested in it. And they were. And so I ended up, I was doing new editions and continuing to update it through the years. The book became an actual textbook at a couple colleges for internet marketing and music marketing. Um, and so that was a big part of my early years. You know, when I first started, I was selling my music, I was selling CDs, I was selling sheet music. And then I started selling my book, and then I started selling other books about the music industry that I was sharing with people. It was all part of what helped me to kind of create an income over time so that I could eventually quit my day job, which I did in 2001 to do music full time, or to do I should say my music business full time, because the music business takes up a lot more time than the music does. But
Yeah,
you
yeah.
know, yeah.
And you worked a lot, ne? 50 hours or longer per week. It's not, and at night you work for music.
Yes. Yeah, I was working, especially in my early 20s, I was working a job that would 50, 60 hours a week. And then when I got to work for the software company, it was more standard hours, 8 to 5, 8 to 6. Sometimes I would go overtime and work a little bit longer, but in the evenings I would go home, I would have dinner, I'd spend an hour at the piano, and then I'd sit down and late nights work late into the night building my own business and websites and marketing and sending out newsletters and
And
emails. And
sleep, David? When
what's
did you
that?
when did you sleep with David?
Oh, I really think about that, and it's crazy because it was not uncommon for me to not go to bed until 2 or 3 in the morning. And so I would work late into the night, and then I'd get up at 7 to go to work. But I mean, I was young. Who needs sleep when you're, 25 years old? You know,
Our
I was,
full up with inspiration.
yeah,
Yeah.
yeah.
Um,
I can't do that anymore.
yeah, yeah, yeah. But I think a great light of you is to help others, and God helps you. You
Yeah.
help. Yeah, I think it's a great light in David Nephew.
Thank you.
Yeah, yeah.
Yeah, I
I,
mean, if you can't help others, I don't know, why are you doing it? I mean, doing something for yourself has very short-term joy. And doing things for others and doing things that put others in positions of success and seeing them have success, whether it's other people playing your music or whether it's other people having success in their careers, or whether it's other people who are encouraged spiritually and in their spiritual walk by things that you say or advice or help that you offer. That's where more the long-term joy is, and where the sense of, purpose is,
yeah, yeah, yeah.
fulfillment.
And this music is healing our world, and it's necessary in these times.
Yeah.
We go to the sixth question. I think we have some responses almost. You have not only followed a profession course, but your inner vocation. When were you able to? No, I think we have it. Were you able to establish yourself with a work, daily life work? You have spoken about this.
Okay.
because a source of income. In your case, you had it then in the end of the 19th, I think, with music and your internet, internet actions, and
Yeah,
knowledge.
yeah, yeah. What really happened, just to put it in summary, in case it helps somebody else in terms of advice, I was
Mhm.
building this business on the side, and I got it to a point to where my side business, I was making as much money income as I was my day job at the software company. So what I did was I did both things for a year, and I saved up a year's salary in the bank. And then I quit my day job,
Mhm.
knowing that if things went bad, I still had a year's salary and I never had to go back.
Yeah, but you had a lot win also in your company with the knowledge in all this virtual, this abilities, in the internet. Without
Yeah.
this, you hadn't it for the music.
Well, right. Yeah. I mean, one of the things that helped me to be successful, I think, was that I was the first person who did so much of this. I was the first person who wrote about internet marketing for music. I was the first person who created an internet radio station specifically for piano music. Even when I started that broadcast, there weren't very many internet radio stations. There were maybe a dozen. Other ones of other styles of music or talk radio or whatever. So, oftentimes being successful sometimes is aided if you can find something to do that you're the first or among the first, because then you become the person that people look to and say, well, how did you do this?
Yeah,
So
yeah. And we have to speak a little bit about the whisperings, awards and meetings between artists one time a year, one time in a year. Ne? And is it today, although since 20 years, or can you tell us a little bit about these things? Because I don't know if it is, for example, exists in Germany. I don't think so. It is
yeah,
very.
it doesn't. Yeah, it doesn't exist in Germany yet. I tried to do, well, just to kind of sum things up, when after the radio broadcast started,
Mm,
once it got going after a couple of years, I wanted to um, get some of the artists together and play concerts together. And so we would get about five of us together, and we would put on a concert together. And this would be at different places in the United States. I think
ah,
the first one we did was in St. Louis. Um, and then we did concerts with other artists, maybe probably four or five a year with different artists. I would just mix together different artists, and I would be kind of the MC, but also a performer. Um, and it got to where we had concerts going on quite a lot between the different artists. And then in 2011, I think was the first time we started doing uh, the Solo Piano Radio Awards concerts. And
mm,
so we would have, give out Album of the Year award. And we would have concerts where we would have gatherings of artists together from all over. And the first year we did this big gathering, I think we had 15 or 16 artists. And then the next year we had like 25 or 30. And then, by the time we got to the final year we did it, which was 2018, we had 45 or 50 artists that all came together. Um, and we'd have 2 nights of performances, and we'd have, we'd have, it'd be kind of like a live version of the radio station. We'd have 15 artists play one night, 15 artists play another night. And the first night we would have some of the real popular artists who were very established. And then the second night, we would have performances by artists who had never performed at a Whisperings concert before,
mm.
who were mostly pretty unknown, or who had not performed live before. And so that was kind of fun. And yeah, we did that through 2018. And after, I think that was our sixth or maybe seventh year, um, was the last year we did it. And it kind of worked out fortuitously because then COVID happened, which probably would have forced us to cancel anyway. Um, but it was taking up so much of my time, about 6 months out of my year, just to prepare for that event and to organize everything and the artists and everything that was happening, including, meetings and events and talks. And so I decided to step away from that so I could kind of get back to doing more creative things on that I needed to do for myself. I was kind of losing myself in that a little bit.
Yeah, of course. Yeah. That, and I just know I had question. Also, I think for many people, it's very interesting. Until today, you know how many songs you have written?
How many songs I have written? I could look. I think it's over 200 in terms of original music and arrangements. I could find out real quick. But yeah, it's let's see here. I have sheet music for every single song, so all I have to do is go and look and see what my total is here. 204 original pieces or arrangements that I've personally written and released.
Pieces, also songs.
Yeah.
And very, very, very well known is, of course, Home and the Wiggle.
The Vigil,
And
yes.
the most purchased or the most, which song would you say is the most beloved song until today?
I think probably I would have to say I have a piece called Overcome.
Overcome.
I think that is probably my most requested piece.
Mm,
And then there's one called No More Tears.
no more.
And then Home is a very popular piece as well.
I always play it on the start of a concert, Home.
Well, and the Vigil is a song that I open almost every concert with.
Yes, yeah.
I know that song. I know that song so well that when I first go up and I first start playing, regardless of how nervous I am or not, I know that I can play that song and not have any problem. And uh, it always helps me relax before I do the rest of the show.
Yeah, yeah. Yeah, the radio station we had. Also, I read. If it is okay, I read something.
Okay.
You were one of the first musicians in the network with much success. A position it held. It held for 7 years and until 2010. When you make the decision you spoke about is to move the broadcast to your own server to avoid being overly reliant on live 365 or network. Yes, 365 networks. Whisperings Radio. Whisperings Radio continues to broadcast over 1 million listening hours each month and promotes the music of over 360 solo piano artists from around the world. One big element of your vision is even the Whispering Solo Piano Radio project, and it was to create an opportunity for solo piano artists to perform concerts together 2005. So it was the first whispering concert in Bellevue.
Bellevue. Ah, yes, Bellevue, Washington. That's right. That
Yeah.
was the first.
Washington is it?
Yes.
Okay, yeah. A good model for other countries, I think.
Yes,
Uh,
I did attempt to we have a lot of international artists on the broadcast,
mhm,
including many in Europe, in Germany, the UK, Sweden, Italy. Um, I did attempt to do a similar kind of concert format there. But it was difficult because I wasn't able to find an artist who would take leadership in terms of helping it to come together because I was here, not there.
yeah, of
So
course,
I
yeah,
needed somebody to do that. And I find that from my experience, it just felt like there was a lot more resistance in the European artists to gather together as a community.
yeah,
Um, I reached out to everybody. I tried to encourage that, but it was just difficult to get people to do that. I feel like maybe it's more of a American thing in terms of, and I could be totally wrong, but and maybe it's just because there's just so many more, but it just felt like it was easier to do that kind of thing here
yeah,
than it was to try to get some groups of people together in Europe, in UK, in Germany, and to get them to work together. So it was difficult, and I didn't push it too hard after a while because I needed somebody. I needed somebody on that side of the ocean that had the same passion for doing it and leading it as I did on my side.
mm, mm. Also one of my dreams, I have many dreams, I'm artist, you know,
Yeah.
would be to organize a concert in Germany with minimal well, yeah, five composers of the USA here.
Let me guess, you would want to have Michelle and Greg and me and you.
Yeah. Richard Lawson, maybe. Okay,
Yes,
yeah, yes.
Chad.
We
Yeah,
can
he's great.
we can dream the dream.
We can dream the dream. Yeah.
Yeah, I will look. Also, but you will come to Germany the next year. Ne?
That's my hope. Yeah. I have to get past this kind of place I am in life right now, but I'm hoping maybe in 2026 we can do that.
Yeah, yeah,
Or
yeah.
20,
I
yeah,
want to
2025.
say that your piece Wonderland, you had
Yeah.
the inspiration in I think Castle Neuschwanstein in this region, Bavarian
Yes.
region. And
Bavaria. Yeah.
so wonderful for you that you had the inspiration to write down this song Wonderland. I love it very much.
Yeah. Well, I mean, I have an album that's called Postcards from Germany, where each song is like this little postcard memory. The entire album was inspired by my trip to Germany and Austria. And so one of my dreams has always been to go back to Germany and Austria and play these songs, to actually play them, perform them there, including Wonderland, which is one of the very popular songs on there, and Big Snow in Salzburg, which is very
Yeah,
popular. And,
nice.
you know, so yeah.
We look forward. Okay. The essential last idea or question is what kind of wisdom and insights would you like to express for the viewers here?
Um, I've been thinking about that. It's like, what kind of wisdom do I have?
A little bit.
Uh, yeah, I guess so. But everything that I do is grounded in my faith and spirituality, but especially my faith in Christ. And I believe that I have a creator and that I was made for a reason and a purpose, and that I was given these gifts for a purpose. Um, and I believe that when we take the gifts that God gives us and we use them to glorify Him and to help draw and encourage others to look to God and to seek after God and to follow after Christ, that the Lord God blesses that. Um, it's like if you are willing, I really believe that if you're like I am, I'm a believer, I'm a Christian, I follow after Christ, and I have this belief that if I use my gifts to shine a light
Yes.
and to point people, say, this is the way, this is the truth, this is the life, this is where it's at, that God takes people who are willing to shine and not hide it, willing to shine, and He lifts them up so that they can be seen. It's like if you're willing to be a light to the world, to serve, to share, to have compassion and mercy and those qualities, God's qualities, perseverance, that God will take somebody who is willing to shine and to lift them and put them in a place where they can shine brighter and reach more people.
Mhm. Mhm.
So I think that we too often, because of our fears and because of our insecurities, we hide our light. We don't want to be seen. And as artists, as an artist, especially artist temperament, we tend to be very insecure about our abilities or downplay them. And so we sometimes want to be hide or we don't want to be seen. And I struggle with this too. Um, but I really believe that if we use the gifts that God has given us, that He's enabled us, endowed us with, He gives us use our gifts, that God will bless others through those things and also bless us and put us in a position where we can actually reach and talk to people, encourage people, and to share and to help others. So I guess my advice, my wisdom is be who God made you to be. Find those gifts, your passion, and use those and follow after Christ, seek after God, because He's where the wisdom is. And trust and walk in faith and just serve others and allow yourself to be that person God made you to be.
Yes. Yeah. That's the awakening of the mankind in the future. This your sentence. And many titles in the songs of Michelle, you and Greg
Yeah.
have this appearance. I'm so glad to meet you now personally.
Yeah. Yes.
And I think you are in God's protection and always in trust for the future. And we are very near in our hearts,
Yes.
5 kilometers in miles, but near in our mind. Yeah, see you. And I will entrain my next lesson with David, my piano.
Okay.
Yeah.
Fantastic. That's great. Well, thank you for having me and thank you for doing this. Thank you for sharing this time. And I really look forward to meeting you in person, hopefully some days, not in the too distant future, and playing some concerts and maybe hearing some of your poetry and writings and seeing your paintings in person. I'm excited about that.
Yeah. Thank you. Thank you.
Yeah.
See
See you later. Thank you.